Saturday afternoons were usually calm inside the small neighborhood store. Soft music played from hidden speakers. Families walked slowly through the aisles. Children pointed at colorful candy near the counter. Felt like a normal day, but in just one moment, everything changed. A loud voice suddenly cut through the quiet air. "Stop right there," the store manager shouted. Every head turned at the same time. Near the glass exit doors stood a 16-year-old boy named Marcus. He froze in place. His hand was still holding a small gift box. He had come to the store to buy a simple birthday present for his little sister. She was turning 8 that evening. He had saved money for 2 weeks from helping neighbors wash cars and clean yards. He wanted to surprise her with something special. He never imagined this day would turn into something else. The manager walked quickly toward him. His face looked angry and serious. "You need to empty your pockets," the manager said loudly. The words felt heavy in the air. People nearby began whispering. Some moved closer to see what was happening. Marcus felt his heart begin to race. He looked confused. "I didn't do anything," he said softly, but his voice sounded small compared to the manager's. The manager pointed toward the watch display behind the counter. "One of the watches is missing," he said. "And you were standing near it." Marcus shook his head quickly. "I only looked at it," he replied. "I put it back." But the manager had already made up his mind. He signaled to the security guard. The guard walked over and stood beside Marcus. Suddenly Marcus did not feel like a customer anymore. He felt like a criminal. People stared at him as if they already knew the truth. A woman near the candy aisle whispered to her husband. A teenage boy pulled out his phone and began recording. Marcus felt heat rise to his face. His hands began to shake. He had never been accused of anything before. He was a quiet student at school. He helped his mother every day after classes. He took care of his little sister when his mother worked late shifts. He had dreams of becoming an engineer one day, but none of that mattered in this moment. All that mattered was the missing watch. The manager crossed his arms. "If you didn't take it, then show us," he said. Marcus slowly placed the small gift box on a nearby shelf. He emptied his pockets one by one. A few crumpled bills, some coins, his phone, a folded note where he had written his sister's favorite colors. Nothing else. "There's nothing there," Marcus said. But the manager did not look satisfied. "You could have hidden it somewhere," he replied. The security guard stepped closer. Marcus felt trapped. The exit doors were only a few feet away, but they felt miles away. Someone had already called the police. Marcus heard the word police, and his stomach dropped. He imagined officers walking in. He imagined being taken outside in front of everyone. He imagined his mother getting a call she never expected. Tears began forming in his eyes, not because he was guilty, but because he felt helpless. "I didn't steal anything," he said again. His voice was stronger this time, but still no one seemed ready to believe him. The store felt smaller now. The whispers grew louder. Some customers looked at him with doubt, others with quiet judgment. Marcus wished someone would ask him what really happened. He wished someone would simply listen. Instead, he stood there waiting for someone to find the truth. Outside, sirens could be heard in the distance. The sound grew closer. The manager stood firm. The security guard remained silent but watchful. Marcus closed his eyes for a second. He thought about his sister blowing out birthday candles later that evening. He thought about how excited she would be to see her gift. Would he even make it home in time? Or would this moment change everything? The glass doors opened as 2 police officers stepped inside. The room became even quieter. All eyes shifted from Marcus to the officers. The nightmare that started with one shout was far from over, and the truth was still waiting to be revealed. When the police officers stepped inside the store, the air felt heavy and tight. The soft music was still playing, but no one paid attention to it anymore. All eyes were now on Marcus. He stood near the exit, his shoulders stiff, his hands shaking slightly at his sides. One of the officers, A tall man with a calm face walked forward slowly. "What seems to be the problem here?" he asked. The manager quickly stepped in, eager to speak first. "This boy stole a watch," he said firmly. "We saw him near the display, and now one is missing." Marcus felt those words hit him like a punch. Stole. The word echoed in his mind. The officer turned to Marcus. "What's your name?" he asked in a steady voice. "Marcus Hill," he replied quietly. "And did you take the watch?" "No, sir," Marcus answered, trying to keep his voice steady. "I looked at it, but I put it back." Some customers exchanged looks. A woman near the counter shook her head slowly, as if she already believed the manager. A man crossed his arms and muttered something under his breath. No one spoke up for Marcus. The second officer walked toward the watch display. He counted the watches carefully. "One is definitely missing," he said. The manager nodded quickly. "I told you," he said. Marcus felt his chest tighten. He knew he had done nothing wrong, but it felt like the room had already decided his story. The tall officer looked back at Marcus. "Empty your pockets again," he said. Marcus obeyed without arguing. He pulled out the same crumpled bills and coins, his phone, the small folded paper with his sister's favorite colors written in blue ink. Nothing else. The officer looked at the items. Then he looked at Marcus's face. Marcus's eyes were red, but not from guilt, from fear. "Where were you standing when you looked at the watch?" the officer asked. Marcus pointed toward the glass case. "Right there," he said. "I picked it up for a second, then I put it back." "Did anyone else come near the display?" Marcus paused, trying to remember. "Yes," he said slowly. "There was a man in a gray jacket. He walked past me. I didn't think anything of it." The manager frowned. "I didn't see any gray jacket," he said quickly. Marcus felt frustration rising inside him. Why would he lie about something like that? The tall officer raised his hand gently, signaling the manager to stay quiet. "We will sort this out properly," the officer said. He then turned to the manager. "Do you have security cameras?" "Yes," the manager replied. "They cover the whole store." "Good," the officer said calmly. "Then we will check the footage." A small wave of relief moved through Marcus's body. Cameras meant proof. Proof meant truth. But the waiting felt like torture. The officers and the manager walked toward the back room where the monitor screens were kept. Marcus stayed near the entrance with the security guard watching him closely. The customers did not leave. They stayed, watching him like he was part of a show. A teenage girl whispered to her friend, "He looks scared." Her friend replied softly, "Maybe he should be." Marcus heard every word. Each whisper felt like a small cut. He tried to stand tall. He thought about his mother. She was still at work. She had trusted him with the money for his sister's gift. What would she think if she walked in right now? He imagined her worried face. The thought made his stomach twist. Minutes passed slowly. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. Every second felt longer than the one before. Marcus kept replaying the moment in his head. He saw himself picking up the watch carefully, turning it slightly under the light, then placing it back gently. He remembered the man in the gray jacket standing close behind him. The man had coughed softly, then moved away. Why did that detail feel important now? The back room door remained closed. Marcus could not see what was happening inside. Was the video clear? Did it show everything? Or was there a blind spot? The fear returned slowly. What if the camera angle made it look wrong? What if it only showed him touching the watch? He swallowed hard. He had always believed that telling the truth was enough. But today he was learning something painful. Sometimes the truth needs proof. The store was still quiet. Even the whispers had faded. Everyone was waiting for something that could change everything. Suddenly the back room door opened slightly. Marcus looked up quickly. His heart beat faster again. The tall officer stepped out first, his face serious but not angry. The manager followed behind him, and for the first time since the accusation began, The manager did not look confident anymore. He looked uncertain. The officer walked toward Marcus slowly, and the entire store held its breath, because whatever the officer said next would decide how this story would continue. The store doors opened quickly, and Marcus's mother rushed inside. She had driven faster than she ever had before. Her hands were still shaking from the phone call. She had left work without even clocking out. All she knew was that her son needed her. When she saw Marcus standing near the entrance with a security guard beside him, her heart dropped. He looked smaller than usual, not because he was weak, but because the weight of everyone's eyes was pressing down on him. "Marcus," she called out. Her voice was strong, but her eyes were full of fear. Marcus turned and saw her. For a second, he almost cried, but he held himself together. "I didn't do it, Mom," he said quickly. "I know," she replied without hesitation. She did not ask him what happened. She did not question him. She simply believed him. That belief gave Marcus a small piece of strength he had lost. The tall police officer stepped forward politely. "Ma'am, we are reviewing the security footage right now," he explained. "There was a missing watch, and your son was near the display." Marcus's mother looked directly into the officer's eyes. "My son is not a thief," she said calmly. "He may look nervous, but that is because he is scared." She then turned toward the manager. "Before you accuse someone, you should be sure," she said firmly. The manager shifted uncomfortably. "We had reason to suspect him," he replied, though his voice was not as confident as before. "Suspecting is not the same as knowing," she answered. The customers nearby listened closely now. Some of them looked at Marcus differently, not with judgment, but with curiosity. The back room door was still open slightly. The second officer was inside watching the footage carefully. The tall officer glanced back at the screen. Then he looked at Marcus again. "Tell me again what happened," he said gently. Marcus took a deep breath. "I picked up the watch," he explained slowly. "I looked at it because I thought maybe my sister would like something shiny like that one day. But it was too expensive, so I put it back. There was a man behind me. He wore a gray jacket. He stood very close. I moved away because I felt uncomfortable." The officer nodded thoughtfully. "And you are sure about the gray jacket?" "Yes, sir," Marcus said. His mother placed her hand on his shoulder. She could feel how tense he was. She could feel his fear. But she also felt something else. His honesty. Inside the back room, the second officer leaned closer to the monitor. He rewound the video carefully. He watched Marcus approach the display case. He saw him lift the watch gently, turn it slightly under the bright lights, then place it back exactly where it was. So far, Marcus's words matched the video perfectly. Then the officer noticed something else. A man in a gray jacket entered the frame. He moved casually, too casually. He stood close behind Marcus, almost blocking the camera's clear view. The officer slowed the footage. Frame by frame, he saw the gray jacket man glance around quickly. Then his hand moved fast, very fast. In one smooth motion, the man slipped the watch into his pocket, and then walked away calmly toward another aisle. The officer leaned back in his chair. "Well, I'll be," he muttered quietly. He immediately called the tall officer into the room. "Look at this," he said. Both officers watched the clip together. Again and again. There was no mistake. The video was clear. Marcus had done nothing wrong. The real thief had used him as a cover. The tall officer's face grew serious. "This changes everything," he said. Back in the store, Marcus and his mother were still waiting. The silence felt endless. Some customers began to look uncomfortable. One man near the door quietly put his phone away. The manager avoided eye contact with Marcus's mother. Finally, the tall officer stepped out from the back room. His expression was different now. Not suspicious, not doubtful, but firm. He walked straight toward Marcus and his mother. The entire store became silent again. "Marcus," the officer said clearly, You are free to go. The words floated in the air for a moment. Free to go. The officer continued. The security footage shows that you did not take the watch. There was another man. A man in a gray jacket. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. He was right. He had remembered correctly. His mother closed her eyes for a second, feeling relief wash over her. The officer then turned toward the manager. We will need a copy of that footage, he said firmly. The manager nodded slowly, his face pale. The crowd began to whisper again. But this time the whispers sounded different. Not full of blame, but full of surprise. Marcus stood taller now. The fear that had wrapped around him was slowly loosening. But something inside him had changed, because even though the truth had won, the words "you are free to go" were still hanging in the air. But Marcus did not move. His feet felt heavy, not because he was guilty, but because something inside him had shifted. The truth had come out, yet the silence inside the store felt louder than the accusation had been. The tall officer turned toward the crowd. For everyone here, he said firmly. The footage clearly shows that this young man did nothing wrong. He paused for a moment, letting that sink in. There was another person involved, and we will handle that. The customers looked at one another. Some lowered their eyes. Some pretended to check their phones. The teenage boy who had been recording slowly put his phone into his pocket. No one spoke loudly now. The energy in the room had changed completely. The manager cleared his throat. He stepped forward awkwardly. Marcus, he began. I may have acted too quickly. His words were slow and careful, but they did not erase what had already happened. Marcus looked at him quietly. He did not feel angry in that moment. He felt tired of explaining himself, tired of being looked at like he did not belong. His mother stepped slightly in front of him. Too quickly? She repeated calmly. You called the police on my son. The manager swallowed. I thought I was protecting my store, he said weakly. And who was protecting my son? She asked. Her voice was not loud, but it carried weight. The store felt smaller again. The tall officer stepped in gently. Ma'am, we will also be reviewing how this was handled, he said. There are procedures that must be followed. The manager nodded quickly. Yes, of course. But his confidence was gone. Marcus glanced around the store. He saw faces that had doubted him only minutes ago. He wondered if any of them would remember this lesson tomorrow, or if they would only remember the moment he was accused. The second officer approached with a small printed still image from the video. This is the man in the gray jacket, he said. The image clearly showed the man's face as he slipped the watch into his pocket. The officer showed it to the manager. Do you recognize him? The manager leaned forward, studying the picture carefully. He comes in sometimes, he said slowly. I've seen him before. The officer nodded. We'll take it from here. Marcus listened closely. The real thief was not just some shadow. He was real, and he would be found. But even with that knowledge, Marcus felt something else growing inside him. A quiet understanding. He had done nothing wrong, but he had still been treated as if he had. The tall officer turned back to Marcus. I'm sorry you had to go through this, he said sincerely. Marcus nodded. Thank you, sir, he replied politely. His mother squeezed his shoulder gently. We're leaving, she said softly. They began walking toward the exit. The automatic doors slid open slowly. As Marcus stepped outside, the cool evening air hit his face. Felt different out here. Free, but not the same as before. He paused just outside the store and looked back through the glass. He saw the bright lights, the people still standing inside, the manager speaking quietly with the officers. He realized something important in that moment. The cameras had saved him, but they had also exposed something bigger. How quickly people assume, how fast judgment can fall, without patience, without proof. His mother stood beside him silently for a few seconds. Are you okay? She asked gently. Marcus thought carefully before answering. I'm not sure, he said honestly. I feel relieved. But I also feel different. His mother nodded slowly. That's because you saw something today that many people don't see until much later, she said. What? Marcus asked. That truth matters, she replied. But sometimes truth needs time. Marcus looked up at the sky. The sun was beginning to set. Orange and pink colors stretched across the clouds. He remembered the gift box still sitting inside on the shelf. He had almost forgotten about his sister's birthday. Mom, he said suddenly. My sister's gift. His mother smiled softly. We'll get it, she said. But not today. Not from here. Marcus understood. Some places hold memories, and not all memories are good. Behind them, one of the officers stepped outside briefly. We have officers looking for the man now, he said. He won't get far. Marcus nodded, but his thoughts were no longer on the thief. They were on something deeper. He realized that today had tested him, not just his honesty, but his strength. He had stood still while being judged. He had spoken calmly while being doubted. And in the end, the truth had spoken for him. As they walked toward their car, Marcus felt something new rising inside him. Not anger, not fear, but determination. He knew the story was not over yet, because Samedi, Marcus and his mother had just reached their car when they heard someone calling his name from behind. Marcus, wait. He turned slowly. It was the teenage boy who had been recording earlier, the same boy who had pointed his phone at him when the accusation first started. Now his face looked different. Not excited, not curious, but nervous. He walked closer, holding his phone tightly in his hand. I'm sorry, the boy said quietly. Marcus did not respond immediately. He just looked at him. The boy swallowed and continued. I shouldn't have recorded you. I thought you were guilty. I didn't even know you. Marcus felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of him wanted to ignore the apology, but another part understood something important. This moment was not just about him anymore. It was about what people choose to believe. It's okay, Marcus said softly. The boy shook his head. No, it's not, he replied. I almost posted the video online. I wanted views. I didn't think about how it would hurt you. Marcus felt his chest tighten again. The idea that the video could have spread everywhere frightened him more than the accusation itself. His mother stepped forward gently. Did you post it? She asked calmly. The boy shook his head quickly. No, ma'am. I deleted it. Marcus looked at him carefully. He could see regret in his eyes. Real regret. Thank you for deleting it, Marcus said quietly. The boy nodded and stepped back. I hope they catch the real thief, he added before walking away. Marcus watched him leave. He realized something powerful in that moment. The cameras had shown the truth, but they had also shown how fast lies can spread. Inside the store, things were still moving quickly. The police had already sent officers to search nearby streets. They had shared the image of the man in the gray jacket with other patrol cars. The real thief did not know yet that he had been caught on camera, but it would not take long. The tall officer walked outside again and approached Marcus and his mother. We've located someone matching the description 2 blocks away, he said. They are bringing him in for questioning. Marcus felt his heartbeat rise again. Part of him wanted to see the man's face, to look at the person who had almost ruined his day, almost ruined his name. Will we need to stay? His mother asked. No, the officer replied. You've done nothing wrong. But if you'd like to see this through, you may wait. Marcus looked at his mother. She looked back at him. This was his decision. I want to stay, Marcus said quietly, not because he wanted revenge, but because he wanted closure. They walked back toward the store entrance. This time, no one stopped him. No one blocked his way. The automatic doors opened as if nothing had happened. Inside, the mood was different. People avoided looking directly at Marcus. The manager stood near the counter speaking softly with one of the officers. A few minutes later, the front doors opened again. 2 officers walked in with a man between them. Gray jacket. Marcus recognized him instantly. The man's face looked calm at first, but when he saw the officers holding a printed image from the security footage, his expression changed. "You want to explain this?" one officer asked firmly. The man glanced at the image, then at Marcus. For a split second, their eyes met. Marcus felt a chill. This was the person who had used him as a shield. The man sighed heavily. "I don't know what you're talking about," he muttered. The officer held up the image again. "It's very clear," he said. The store fell silent. Every person inside watched closely. The same crowd that had judged Marcus now witnessed the real truth unfold. The man's shoulders dropped slowly. He realized there was no escape. "It was just a watch," he said quietly. "Just a watch?" the officer repeated firmly. "It was not yours." The man said nothing else. He was led toward the exit. This time, people did not whisper. They watched silently, understanding what had truly happened. Marcus stood still. He did not feel proud. He did not feel victorious. He felt steady, strong in a quiet way. The tall officer approached him once more. "You handled yourself well today," he said respectfully. "Not everyone could stay calm like you did." Marcus nodded. He thought about the fear he had felt earlier, the helplessness, the shame. All of it had been heavy, but now something lighter replaced it, a sense of clarity. The manager walked over slowly. "I will be making a public apology," he said, "to you and your family." Marcus looked at him carefully. "Make sure you think before you accuse someone next time," he said calmly. The manager nodded, unable to argue. As Marcus and his mother finally walked out again, the sky had turned darker. The stars were beginning to appear. This day had tested him. The night air felt cooler now, but Marcus's thoughts were still burning. He sat quietly in the passenger seat as his mother drove home. Streetlights passed by the window one by one, each light flashing across his face like quick memories from the day. The shout, the stares, the whispers, the apology, the gray jacket. It all felt unreal. "You're very quiet," his mother said gently, keeping her eyes on the road. "I'm just thinking," Marcus replied. "About what?" He paused for a moment, trying to find the right words. "I keep wondering," he said slowly, "if there were no cameras, what would have happened?" The question hung in the car like a heavy cloud. His mother did not answer right away, because she knew the truth. Without the footage, things could have been very different. "They would have believed the store manager," Marcus continued. "They would have believed what they thought they saw. And no one would have believed me." His mother finally spoke. "That is why it is important to stand strong," she said calmly. "You cannot control what people assume, but you can control who you are." Marcus looked out the window again. He understood her words, but the feeling inside him was deeper than just relief. It was awareness that sometimes the truth needs protection, that sometimes a good person must carry strength even when they should not have to. When they reached home, the house felt warm and safe. His little sister ran toward him the moment he opened the door. "Did you get my surprise?" she asked excitedly. Marcus smiled softly. "Not yet," he replied, "but I promise I will." She did not notice anything was wrong, and for that he was thankful. Later that evening, after his sister went to sleep, Marcus sat at the kitchen table alone. His mother joined him with 2 cups of tea. "You handled today better than many adults would," she said proudly. Marcus shook his head slightly. "I was scared," he admitted. "Being scared does not mean you are weak," she replied. "It means you are human." He thought about the officer's words. "You handled yourself well," but he did not feel proud. He felt changed. He realized something important that night. It was not just about proving he was innocent. It was about understanding how quickly people judge, and how easily one moment can damage someone's name. The next morning, the story had already begun spreading around the neighborhood. Some people heard about the accusation. Some heard about the footage. Some heard both. But not everyone knew the full truth. At school, whispers followed Marcus through the hallway. He could hear bits of conversations. "That's him. He was almost arrested. I heard the cameras saved him." Marcus kept walking calmly. He refused to lower his head. If people wanted to look, he would let them look. If they wanted to talk, he would let them talk. Because now he understood something deeper. His name was still his, and he had protected it with honesty. During lunch break, something unexpected happened. The principal called him into the office. For a moment, Marcus felt nervous again. But when he entered, the principal stood up and shook his hand. "I heard what happened," the principal said kindly. "I want you to know we are proud of how you handled it." Marcus blinked in surprise. "Proud?" he asked softly. "Yes," the principal replied. "You stayed calm, you told the truth, and you trusted that the facts would come out. That shows character." Marcus had not thought about it that way. He had only focused on surviving the moment. But now he began to see something else. Strength does not always look loud. Sometimes it looks like patience. Sometimes it looks like standing still while the storm passes. Later that afternoon, the tall officer visited Marcus's home briefly. He had come to update them. "The man in the gray jacket confessed," he said. "He admitted he used you as a distraction." Marcus felt a quiet wave of emotion. The thief had chosen him on purpose. He had stood close behind him knowing that suspicion would fall in that direction. That truth hurt more than the accusation itself. But it also confirmed something important. The thief had counted on judgment. He had counted on people assuming. And that assumption had almost worked. "I'm sorry you were put in that position," the officer said sincerely. Marcus nodded. "Thank you for checking the footage carefully," he replied. After the officer left, Marcus stood near the window watching the sunset. The sky looked calm again, like nothing had ever happened. But he knew better. Something inside him had grown stronger. Not anger, not bitterness, but awareness. He now understood that truth is powerful. But courage is what carries it through the storm. And he promised himself something quietly in that moment. No matter where life took him next, he would never allow someone else's asu